Hi guys, my name is Crystal and welcome to my YouTube channel. Now this video is to give you some insights into this bullying that I've been getting. When the police have questioned me and when other people have said it's your social media, Crystal, it's your social media, it's your Facebook, it's your YouTube. And I explained to these people that this bullying has gone on before the internet was even thought of. Right? So before mobile phones, before Facebook, before YouTube, it was actually far worse because these people could not hide behind fake profiles. They could not send you messages on a mobile phone. Back in the day, people had these big phones, these big telephones that now fetch quite a bit of money online. Great big phones, you know, landline phones, massive ones. I still remember my old phone number, 778 0072. That was my first landline phone number at Hazel Grove in Sydenham, South East London, 778 0072. I still remember it. So before the internet, before mobile phones, I was being viciously bullied when I just stepped out of the flat. Now, I'm going to give you one incident before I was married, and I'm going to give you a bullying incident when I was married. I lived with my mum and dad and sister at Hazel Grove in London, Sydenham, South East London, which was just off the Sydenham High Street. You had Tartaglia's, the ice cream company, opposite that road, and I had to go to school. In some flats opposite, it was a council estate area, there was this girl called Penny. And every time I came out of my flat and down the steps of Hazel Grove, she would come out opposite direction, four eyes, because I wore glasses. I wore National Health Service spectacles when I was a little girl. I've always been short-sighted. Four eyes, and of course you're tempted to go back indoors to your mother in the safe arms of your mum because you're being bullied. So I'm detecting a distinct pattern here. I'm not saying it's my mum because my dad's now dead, so it's not my dad doing it, is it? So I'd come down the steps, all happy, because I used to walk around with my little radio. Back in those days, there was no Walkmans and things. So I used to walk around with a portable radio, and we had boom boxes in the 80s, you know, those like cassette players that belted out music. So I'd be walking around happy, listening to my music and my radio, go down the steps of Hazel Grove, like either to go to school or attempt to go to the park. Now there were two parks in Sydenham, Mayo Park and Home Park. So I tried to go to Mayo Park with my radio, and I've got this girl coming up the street, and her name was called Penny. Four eyes, and what's wrong with your hair? What's that in your hair? And I was a very sensitive child, very sensitive, whereas other kids would say, fuck off. I got upset and I'd go indoors to my mum and start crying. So there's a distinct pattern. Somebody upsets me, go running to mummy. Right? Run to mummy. Now this is a case where got married. I was living in Gloucestershire and my mum was ringing me for hours on the phone during the week when my husband was at work. So my mum has never stopped. She's always been on the phone, been there in some respect, and I've always been bullied. So my ex-husband was in the house, and I decided to take my youngest son to town, whether it was to the doctors or to shopping. So my son's got his lovely little hooded coat on, his lovely bright blonde hair, and I'm walking him up the road to the bus stop, and then out of nowhere come 5 or 6 young lads of about 17, 18, 19, and they start surrounding the bus stop, and there's only me and my little son, who's just about 3, at the bus stop. And this is what happens. Oi, you! Go and move down to the next bus stop. This is our bus stop. Go down there. I said, no, my baby is small. He can't walk right down there to the next bus stop. I'm going to wait for a bus here. Thank you. And I wasn't rude. Move. No. I'm going to kick the football at your baby's head if you don't move. I said, hey, there's no need to be like that. In those days, people didn't walk around with mobiles because they weren't invented. So what the fuck do I do? These boys want to hit my son's head with a football. I said, right, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my husband, and he'll discuss this with you. So they were trying to stop me going into town with my little boy, and he needed a doctor's appointment. So I bring my husband out, and they start mouthing off to my husband. They start mouthing off, wouldn't pay a penny for her, wouldn't pay half a penny for her, and start upsetting my husband, insulting me in front of my husband. And eventually they move off because my husband says, right, I'm going to have to get the police out. If you lot don't behave yourselves, I'm going to have to go in and call the police. And eventually these about 5 or 6 young lad bullies who'd called me a prostitute, they wouldn't pay a penny for me, insulted me in front of my husband and threatened to kick a ball at my son's head. Eventually they went off, and I was allowed to get on the bus to go into town. So this has been going on for a long time, and the only person that shows up in all of this is my mum. My dad's dead. Every bullying incident was blamed on my father. The internet bullying, he's dead. I'm still being bullied now, and my father's dead. He's been long dead. And my mum does tend to take the mickey out of me. She called me Nanny Trower when I was 12 because I had ginger hair, copper ginger hair. She's now mentioned Nanny Trower again, who's been long dead. I lost my nan and granddad, Frank and Kath, in 1988, I believe. So it's always my mum in the background, like bringing my teeth into the equation as well, and stuff like that. It's not nice. I can't prove who it is, but I'm just saying to people, this bullying has gone on far long before the internet was invented, long before mobile phones were invented, and I've always kept in contact with my mother. I was in Gloucester for 22 years, being bullied. We were getting prank phone calls as well. Prank phone calls me and my husband were getting, really bad prank phone calls from somebody on the landline phone. My mum would ring sometimes at 2 hours at a time, and she was in contact with my children and speaking to them. So she was talking to my young daughter, she was talking to both my sons on the phone, and they would come off the phone and start misbehaving really badly. So you've got to understand that there's been one person in this scenario all the way along, and it's been my mother. It has. But for a young lad to threaten to kick a football at a baby boy's head is a bit extreme. I've also been kicked when I was pregnant by a youth kicked from behind. They kicked me from behind, and my husband witnessed it and reported it to the police. So this bullying has gone on far too long, and I do think it should start being investigating. It's horrific. To actually threaten to kick a baby's head in is horrific. See you later.